Welcome to Unison for All. Our first speaker for this segment is Simon Højbjerg, or Simon, as we like to call him. He's the developer experience lead at Unison Computing. Among other things, he's in charge of developing Unison Share, a Unison native solution to code hosting and collaboration. And Simon is going to tell you about that now. Simon?
All right, cool. Hi, I'm Simon. I work on UX stuff at Unison, both front-end as well as front-end development as well as design. And we're going to be talking about Unison Share today, and I'm really excited about what I'm going to show you. All right, so let's kick it off. Unison Share is our community hub. It is at the center of the user experience, Unison experience. This is where we go to discover projects and Unison code. We have this cool catalog where there's featured projects. You can search and discover. And since we can't read Unison code on GitHub, Share is also where we browse project code, read docs, and sometimes let the discovery run wild as we're clicking through the hyperlink code to read definitions being depended on, and really explore the Unison ecosystem and code bases. It's pretty awesome. Self-pat for me and the team. But it helps a lot with the Unison experience. But there is some janky stuff about it. While it is great that we can see code, the way code is put on Share is through this manual mirror of everyone's the people who have code on Share, their GitHub code bases. Are sort of mirrored to Share through updating this like kind of a archaic transcript in a special kind of way. It's brittle and it's slow updating, and it has a quite high barrier to entry to get code published on Share, way too high. That's not the system we envision. Well, we've been working really hard on fixing this jankiness, and we're really excited to share that new shiny things are just around the corner. As you might know, hosting Unison code on GitHub is kind of a sad story right now. If you've ever looked at the Unison repository, they all look like this. There's no code visible. You can't browse anything. It's just a SQLite file. So this is the reason we created Share in the first place, for browsing Unison code. But we're almost ready for the next evolution of that. And the first major thing we're addressing is code hosting. This means that we will no longer need GitHub in the loop. We kind of never really use Git for versioning anyway, since Unison handles that internally. We've been using it mostly as code host, and if you've ever seen the docs about pull request, there's like a pull request thing inside of Unison, and you open up a ticket on GitHub and paste in a bunch of text. It's not really tied together well there. So we're now going to be able to host code directly on Unison Share. And let me show you how that works. So here is sort of a little bit of a live demo of that. On the right, I have Share Next running locally on my machine in the browser, and on the left, I have UCM. So I have a real user here. There's no like weird inference of a username based on a a namespace name in that transcript on GitHub that we use to power share now. No, there's a real user. I'm logged in via OAuth. I have user settings and things like that. There's a catalog, and I have a codebase tab. And it is empty. I have not pushed anything to this codebase yet. So let's do that. Okay, so on the left here, I have UCM running, and I've prepared this Unison for All namespace, and in it we have base and text extra, which is a small library I maintain of utilities for the text type, and we can sort of view one of them. I think it starts with. Yeah, so there's like a little bit of code there. I mean, it works. It's cool. But let's push it to share. So we're going to use push create. We're going to use Heuber, which is my username on share. You can also see that here in the browser and here. And I'm going to do public. So with this version of this next version of share, we're just going to be supporting public code. So the way we're doing this is that there's always going to be a namespace called public that we push to. So that it's very clear that that's what's happening. Okay, so we're going to call this Unison for All 2022, and I'm just going to hit push. So this is going to grab everything within this Unison for All 2022 namespace and put it on share, and we'll be able to browse it. Let's see, it should finish in a second. There we go. So if I refresh this now, we now have a public, and I can go down into it. I can see base. I can open terms. I can close them like normal browsing of code. I even have the text extra stuff, and we could like even open that starts with the Finder, which I renamed begins with as an alias. I think there's another name that says starts with here. Okay, great. So that's it. It's kind of a quick demo, but hey, there's Unison code being pushed directly from my machine to Unison Share without GitHub in the loop. There's Unison Share becomes the central place, the hub of our community and Unison code, and there's nothing else involved. So let's go back to the slides. So all of this is going to be available in a beta format very soon, and we're going to be fully releasing it with M4 later this summer. Check out this link in the slides here. I can send out the slides later for signing up to the beta, and we'll notify you when we're ready to let in users, but we're really excited. But of course, we're just getting started. There's a lot more than code hosting that we can do. This is obviously a very, very solid foundation that we sort of need to do anything with Share, but it really opens up the door for a lot of cool things. So let's look further ahead of what we have planned for Share. And there's a caveat here that goes without saying that what I'm going to show is very much being designed still, and there will probably change in some kind of way in the final version. Okay, so now that code bases are synced to Share, we can do a lot with them. In this first version that I demoed, everyone had just a public code base, but in the future we'll have a unique spot for your code base that only you can see. It will be private to you, and sharing Unison code will be via projects. And we'll talk more about them shortly. The code base, which is that tab you will have, which will be unique to you, will feature a simple landing page, the overview. Here you can gain insights into how your code base is doing, when syncs are happening and when they're breaking and things like this. There might also be the place where you could roll back to an earlier version if you pushed something by mistake. We could do like a full-blown reflog utilization tool that you can already do locally in UCM. We can do that on Share. And I think it's important to note here that it's very important for us that folks can be reassured and understand what's going on with their code base on Share at all times. Being able to debug network problems and that kind of stuff is very important. And yeah, you want to be able to understand what's happening and avoid it being this like, opaque thing. So in the left sidebar, we have code base browsing like we see on Share currently. And in the local UI that ships with UCM, it's the old stuff I just showed, what we know and love from that with the code base tree, the finder where you can search, you can pop open definitions, you can move from definitions to other definitions with the hyperlinked code, all that cool stuff, view docs. But this will also feature a small navigation. In this version, in this mock here, I have highlighted projects and sketches. These will be entities that exist within your code base that we scan for when the code base is synced. We collect them, and you can easily navigate to them through this UI. It does not matter where in your code base they exist. We know them by their type, and we can find them and surface them in this UI. So you can organize things like you want, and then projects come out of that. We'll cover projects in detail shortly, but we won't be doing sketches in detail today. But very briefly, there's sort of a concept similar to GitHub Gists, but are fully fledged standalone Unison programs that are type checked and everything, and they're made from like a single namespace. So they're very like standalone. We think that they're very cool and have the potential to drive the pull request or merge request stuff that we're going to be doing down the line. In fact, we're already kind of using them for that in some cases. There's an early version of sketches alive today called Gists. Okay, so let's talk about projects. Projects will be the main shareable unit in Share. It is the center of collaborating on code and releasing products, as well as applications and all that stuff. It's also a place where you can just tinker on small personal pieces of Unison code. It doesn't have to be shared, but it's like a very cohesive unit and has like dependency management and that kind of stuff with it. As you expect from something like this, when you visit it in Share, it'll feature a README, and this shows up automatically if there's a Unison doc called README in the top level namespace of a project. The way you get to projects, I should say, is either via a user's page, via the catalog, or through that link on the left on the code base screen that will have like a list of your projects. Also fun little thing, this like avatar that's associated with the project is based on it's uniquely colored based on the name and the hash of the project. And I think we can probably make even more unique patterns with that. It's based on the Unison logo hex grid, which is kind of a fun fact. It's neat. Okay, so projects will have a sidebar, much like the codebase screens, and it will feature the same kind of browsable code UI as we've seen there and in many other places. And it has like this project-specific navigation, as well as a way to see number of features, number of favorites and downloads. This is this upper area here, and which I think helps determine viability for using a project as a dependency, understanding whether or not this is actively developed, and that kind of stuff. As well, of course, as a place where you can keep track of your favorite projects and show them some love. So there will be a project settings screen, which owners and admins of a project gain access to. This is where collaborators and their permissions can be configured. Features can be toggled on and off. So you have scratch files with the project, the Unison code you're tinkering on. You have like a scratch project. You don't maybe need releases and tickets. You can just turn them off, and they'll be hidden in the sidebar, not clutter the UI. There will be a releases page if you have releases enabled that will show the current release and the past releases with a way to diff and download releases. All of this is driven by a type called the project type, and it's kind of similar in concept to a package JSON file or a Cabal file or stack file. The way it works is that you include a definition of this type in your namespace, and that namespace becomes a project by just having this definition there. This definition tracks metadata about the project, as well as releases and dev dependencies. Because of the content address nature of Unison, when we go to gather names for dependencies, we can construct exact release dependencies instead of having to deal with tree shaking and dead code elimination. All that stuff just goes away because of how Unison works. Dev dependencies are a place to depend on other projects that will install, and it will install them in full when you're developing a project. So this makes it very quick and easy to utilize a new definition from a library that's already installed without having to install individual definitions if you don't want to. And we will have UCN commands to help with all of this for creating a project. You don't have to maintain this file yourself. There will be commands to help it, and for working with dependencies and releases, installing dependencies, releasing, do pre-releases, all that stuff we will have UCN commands for. So that's projects. It is going to be awesome, and we're going to be working on it very, very soon. It's sort of like on the docket next after Share, Share Next, and there is a proposal up on the current Share. We'll bring that over to Share Next, of course, where you can read through the specifics of the types that are involved. It has, a narrative, screenshots, and code samples, and all that stuff. And it sort of tries to explore this fully, but it is very much in an exploratory phase, and feedback is very much welcome there. Okay, so next is a bit more into the future, but we think it will be really cool. Structural diffs, yeah. So this is something we are really excited about, and it will play a foundational role in merge requests and understanding what's changed between releases and such. Okay, so again, early mock. I'm going to try to walk through this. So this is an early mock of something we've been exploring with structural diffs. In this example, I've made a change to the starts with function, and the change has been indicated with the change I've made has been indicated precisely with the yellow background. And I've clicked on this specific change to add a comment to it, which is this like red line coming here, and this like marks me wanting to make a comment. In this case, I wanted to like have a small comment stating why I made a change. And we will understand deeply how and what things changed, right? Like we know that this is a function change because of the structured nature of Unison. So we can just call it that. We can auto-generate a little summary, function call change, and we can of course have a more traditional diff UI as well to show sort of the green and red of the changes. And below that, we can have comments. You can reply to comments as you would expect in this kind of workflow. Comments, of course, will be Unison docs so that you can highlight code, link to code, and do all the cool things we can with Unison docs. And we will also, of course, have reactions so you can celebrate wins together. We think that stuff is really important. Okay, so further down here, Paul has made has marked up another function that's unrelated to the diff, and he sort of marked that as which is this blue gray background. He's also made a mark on uncons up here, the actual change, and so both of them are piping into his comment. And again, we know what he's marking. It's function calls, and we know what they are, so we can like generate a summary, and Paul can make a comment, or anyone can make a comment based on that. As an aside to this UI, I think I'm kind of interested in leveraging wider screens on desktop more. And this view, where we have comments in sort of a tray on the right side, seems like a really nice way to avoid breaking the flow of code reading. In line with that thinking, there is syntax highlighting here, but it's like in this monochrome way, so that it avoids visual noise with the diff itself. We kind of use this monochrome view in a place already currently in the Finder. When you search for the starts with function, you would see the type in a monochrome syntax highlighted way for the same reason. Yeah, so collaboration is at the core of software. Like literally everything we do as programmers, from coding to planning, is saturated with collaboration. And I'm really excited to explore this space more with Unison. So it's really cool to see the progression of that weird, unreadable stuff on GitHub to all this cool Unison native integrated experiences. And there's way more stuff that we can do now. We have a solid foundation. We're very excited to explore that and share in the coming months and years. There's really a huge potential with the structured nature of content address code for compelling, fun, and creative user experiences. I am going to leave you with some thoughts on UX. Thoughts that have been driving the work we do at Unison, and it is going to continue to drive the work in a much more significant way now that we are getting solid ground under our feet. Everyone is deserving of great user experiences. That means programmers too. Let's be honest, our tools are often challenged in this department, and we want to change that at Unison. We want to make amazing user experiences for programmers. I want to use software that speaks to my creativity and inspires me, makes me smile, and gets me excited every day to use it. That's the kind of software I really, really want to use. That feeling of creativity, playfulness, collaboration, and achieving stuff together is at the very heart of what we aspire to do at Unison, which is making software more human. That's all I have today. If you are interested in this stuff and or UI, UX in general, the UI UX channel on Slack is the place to be. Thanks.
Awesome talk, Simon. That was fantastic. Sweet. I am personally really, really excited for where this is going to go, and I'm just excited to be able to use this someday for my day-to-day work. For people who are interested in asking questions, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A tab, and I'll pull some out of there. While we wait for some of those to kind of flood in here, I just wanted to ask, where might you see Share fitting into like developers' day-to-day development workflows? So personally, when I use something like GitHub, I actually do most of my development, finish it up for the most part, then push it up to GitHub where we start the collaboration process after the code is written. Do you see Share fitting in kind of more tightly integrated into the development workflow, or how do you see that working?
That's a good question. I think Share is the collaboration hub. So collaboration is the most important piece. Down the line, we have structural editing and like collaborative editing. That will be even more true and become earlier in the development process as well, right? Like this might be the place you do a lot of your development. Obviously, we will have options for people to choose how they prefer to work. Share is sort of in a unique space, both with that, but also in that it is both a package management system as well as a code hosting repository system. So it's like both of them at the same time. This is where you go to discover new things as well to collaborate. So it's really cool in that way.
I want to dig into that just a little bit more, because I think maybe we undersell that a little bit, and it's something people don't necessarily fully understand. So you're kind of saying Share is going to be kind of like a combination of, if you were in JavaScript, NPM and GitHub at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any like kind of collaboration superpowers or any cool features that we might be able to implement because of that union that wouldn't be possible on a traditional like NPM or GitHub independently?
I think the feedback loop just becomes much tighter between publishing and working with your code. It's going to be right there, and getting code out the door and live into users' hands is going to be quicker. And down the line even we're going to integrate Unison Cloud as well with Share. So it's going to be a very tight feedback loop.
All in one package. Yeah. So you're saying I won't have to wait for someone to merge and deploy a new NPM package after I submit my pull request. It'll be right there.
Yeah,
that's great. Okay, cool. I know collaboration is something that's really important to you. Is there like which aspects of adding kind of a community to this hub really stand out and are going to be something that you're looking forward to using?
So I'm very excited about the structural diffing and the merge request and having good conversations of that. And I think we have a lot of responsibility at Unison to facilitate a good conversation in that area, but it's also very exciting to be able to do that, right? Like we can really make this a positive and creative and fun user experience, and allow people to interact with each other often and in good ways, because I really think that programming is at heart about collaboration. Like the very code we write, someone else is going to read and try to understand and work with, and it's like sort of this like weird async collaboration, if you will, through the code we write, and being able to emphasize that and dig into that and support that fact through Unison Share is going to be cool.
Tavish asks, what is there a vision for a Unison IDE, or what is that space looking like in the future?
Yes, there is a very broken vision, or like very incomplete vision. So we have the Unison local UI right now, and there's been thoughts about turning that into an Electron app or something like that. So we have like a solid application, and you could imagine very much so. I think it would be a shame not to have that integrated with Share, and be directly connected to Share. This might be the thing you install instead of installing UCM. You install Unison local, and that includes UCM as like a CLI for that,
right?
As opposed to the other way around. So yeah, a very, very high fidelity IDE is something that we really want to do.
Right, and we'll see which possibilities come out of the idea of having the UCM kind of it is already integrated into your development environment. So we'll see how we can expand that integration in the future. Lucas asks, have you had a look at Jonathan Edwards' work on structural diffing at all? Typed image-based programming with structure editing.
I know of his work, but I haven't looked at that specifically. But that sounds like something I should probably check out.
Yeah, we're really excited to dig into the structural diffing space in the future. So if anyone has cool resources for that, feel free to drop them. We're definitely looking for inspiration and stuff in that area.
Yeah.
Someone asks, how can we help contribute to Share?
So there's a few ways. There's the UI UX channel where this is like sort of where the main UI work is being done. And while the part of Share is closed source, the part that drives the code browsing experience is fully open source and available, and it's an LMAP. You can contribute to that directly, and it's at the core of the whole experience. So yeah, that's where the jamming happens as well. And there's also a open source design system for Unison UI. It's called UI Core, also on our GitHub. That is also an Elm that includes a bunch of these things. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. What else have we got here? Oh, where would we be storing comments? Is that something that's in our code base or somewhere else? And I see another question here asking kind of what's the distinction between what becomes part of your code base and what is, kind of metadata for Share, and then kind of what's kind of the layout with those sorts of things?
Yeah. The short answer is all of that stuff is very unclear still. We are, we're still exploring. We really like the idea of utilizing Unison code itself for almost all of this. So that is probably our first reaction to dealing with these kind of things, and how exactly comments are going to be added to a diff and what that entity looks like in your code base. That's a little bit fuzzy, but things like the project type that I mentioned earlier, that is a type that's it lives on its own outside of Unison Share. So that is a core thing in Unison, and if you don't use Share for whatever reason, you can still organize your code into projects, and dependencies will be, you can grab dependencies from other sources than Share.
Awesome. Maybe we'll ask one more question and then we'll move over to the Q&A room for the break.
Yeah.
So one other question. I think this comes out of the kind of Union as a code collaboration tool and also kind of a package hosting software, which is we see that the actual dependencies and libraries are listed in a project. So what sort of things can we learn about how software is linked together as open source software? Will we be able to see which libraries are used by which projects, and are there any tools that we can benefit from with that sort of explicit distinction?
Yeah, we absolutely will be able to draw links like that. Obviously, respecting privacy if you have private projects and stuff like that. But yeah, there's a whole lot of cool things and analytics we can do on top of people's projects and code bases to help folks understand the impact of their work better. So yeah, it's really cool. They said nothing.